Are we live?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dustin. Good afternoon. This is the Central District Health Board meeting for Tuesday, September 14th, 2021. It is 3 o'clock p.m., and I will introduce myself as the presiding chair. I serve Elmore County, Betty Ann Nettleton, along with Representative Megan Blanksma. And we're proceeding on with our agenda today. We'll call for roll call by county. Ada County, Dr. Young.
Jane Young here.
Raul Labrador.
Raul Labrador here.
Thank you, Raul. Dr. Cole. I don't believe he's on the call. Boise County, Ryan Stern. I don't think Ryan's on. Elmore County, Megan.
Megan Blanksma here.
Valley County, Commissioner Hasbrook.
Commissioner Hasbrook, present.
Okay, thank you, folks. We do have a quorum, so we will proceed on with our action items. Director Duke, are there any changes to the agenda?
Madam Chair, we have no changes to the agenda today unless one of the board members would like to make a change.
Well, hearing none, we'll proceed on with item number 4 under new business. And this is a review on the modification and vote on the board bylaws. I'm going to turn this discussion over to you, Russ, and to Elt.
Okay, well, I'd be glad to begin. So at our August board meeting, there was a discussion about electing a trustee. The election for the board leadership positions generally take place at the May board meeting. And at that time, Dr. Ted Epperly was the physician board representative, and he was elected as the trustee, but his term expired and he was not reappointed to continue serving on the board after his third 5-year term. And that left the vacancy for the trustee. So at the regularly scheduled August board meeting, there was a discussion among board members as far as the term limits that are set by bylaws, not by code, but set by all of you to determine how long a person can serve in a leadership position. So I made some changes to the bylaws that went beyond that. It was a lot more cleanup and some corrections that needed to be made. And I sent those to all of you, as well as the 3 options for the trustee position. Commissioner Hasbrook had served in that role for 3 consecutive 2-year terms, which according to the current bylaws would mean that he could not be reelected into that role to serve an additional term. So there were basically 3 options I included in the bylaws. One obvious is to leave the bylaws as they are right now, which would be Commissioner Hasbrook would not be able to serve an additional term as the trustee. Or another option is you can eliminate the term limits because you have elections every 2 years. So you can replace somebody every 2 years, or if there was a need, the board could probably do that in between those terms. Like if somebody were to leave the board, they would have to be replaced at that point in time. The third option is to have the elected position serve no more than 4 consecutive 2-year terms. So, Madam Chair, I'll turn some time over to Commissioner Hasbrook. You mentioned him maybe wanting to say a few words, but I'll stop there. If you want to go item by item in the bylaws as far as what the proposed changes are, I'd be glad to review that as well.
Okay. Elt, would you like to speak now, or would you prefer we go through each of the changes prior to your speaking?
Well, just really quick, Madam Chair, we kind of talked about it at the August meeting, and that is that because the counties are going to be basically taking over the funding of the health districts, I'm not sure really the strength or the need for a trustee. And then it was kind of explained by our director Duke that, we still will have an influence on the Millennium Fund. So there is still some responsibilities to that job, but because of the legislation last year, I think that position is, I don't want to say become weaker, but it's not nearly as an important function as it was in the past when we dealt with the formula. And I'm willing to continue on with that position. I have about a little over 3 more years as my term as a county commissioner, and then we'll see where the Lord leads me after that. But I'm willing to continue in that. It just depends on if there's anyone else on the board that is more interested or feels like they would like to do that job. I'm certainly okay with that as well. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Eld. Russ, would you like to lead us through these changes?
Sure, I'd be glad to do that. So starting on page 1, there was, under the section 1, members of District Board of Health, there was a statement made there, terms of office for each District Board of Health member commence on July 1. And traditionally that has always been the case, but that's not a decision that the Board of Health can make. That's determined based on when a person gets appointed. So historically, I guess at least for the 15 years since I've been the director, people, board members would leave some time within that 5-year term, and then the person that replaced them would serve out the remainder of the term. Well, for the first time, we had a gap that occurred from when Dr. Epperle's term expired until Dr. Cole was very recently appointed. So Dr. Cole's term starts on the day that he received the final confirmation vote that came from Elmore County and when we received that official letter. So I'm recommending that that be stricken from the bylaws. Then on page 3, under section 5, special meetings of the district board, we just added additional language in there to describe what exactly a special meeting is and to differentiate that between a special meeting and an emergency meeting. And there was also some language in there that these meetings could be called by me, the secretary of the board, or by written request of 3 members of the district board. And those are not correct. They're not consistent with Idaho code. The meetings must be called by the chair or a majority members of the board. Then if you turn to page 4, actually it starts on page 3, which is section 8, removal of members of the District Board of Health. In there, it said that any member of the board who shall be absent from 3 consecutive meetings for reasons not deemed reasonable by the board will be construed as having resigned from the board. And then the secretary of the board shall notify the county commissioners and request a replacement. And it's not up to the board to make that determination. So instead, replacement language would be that I would notify the appointing authority. In the case of the county, whoever, if it were Commissioner Hasbrook who missed 3 meetings, I would notify Valley County that he missed 3 meetings, and it would be up to them to decide if they wanted to have a replacement or not. Then under the duties of the trustee, there's the trustee serves as Central District Health Representative on the Idaho Association of District Boards of Health Executive Council. So we always did that by default because the Executive Council was established a few years ago. And for the 7 public health districts, the trustee has always served on the Executive Council. So I just added language in there, section C, under section 11, duties of the trustee, to make that formal. Then under section 13, duties of the secretary to the board, that is where we included language that as far as, I'm sorry, it's not under section 13, but it's under section 14, limitation on terms of office. No person shall serve more than 3 consecutive 2-year terms. So I removed that in its entirety because as one of the options for you to consider, because you do hold an election every 2 years for these offices. So term limits may or may not be relevant to you, and you get to make that determination today. The other option is to change that so that no person shall serve more than 3 or more than 4, struck out 3 consecutive 2-year terms. So that's, in my opinion, that's the decision, the big decision point you need to make today. And then finally, under section 15, salary payment reimbursement of members of District Board of Health expenses, it had Central District Health will pay expenses and salary for board members when attending a meeting called by the chair or by the district director. And as I noted earlier, I don't determine when these meetings occur. That's up to the board chair or the majority members of the board. So that replacement was included. And then the same as later on under that same section, added language at Central that will pay for actual expenses in accordance with our travel policy, and you'll be compensated for Idaho Code 59509I. Those are the changes that I made to the bylaws for discussion for the board today.
Okay, thank you, Russ. The floor is open for discussion on these changes. Anybody have some points they want to make?
Madam Chair, this is El.
Yes, Elt, go ahead.
I just want to remind Russ, and now I can't find it, on the special meetings notice. Where was that? The 24-hour requirement. I know that we've been getting some training that you have to state what the emergency is in the minutes of that meeting. Does that make sense?
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
That's section 5.
5, where is it?
Right, under section 5. So no special meeting shall be held without at least 24-hour meeting and agenda notice unless an emergency exists. And then that section of the bylaws goes on to say an emergency situation involving injury or damage to persons or property, and explains all that. So that must be stated at the outset of the meeting if it occurs within that 24-hour window. So I included that just to make it crystal clear, if we do have an emergency meeting, what the steps are to make that in compliance with open meeting law.
And I think, Russ, that's where some of the counties have been getting into trouble, is that they don't state what the emergency is when they notice that meeting, and you have to do that.
Right. Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Russ.
I wanted to also let you know that Dr. Cole was able to join us a few minutes late, so he's on now.
Oh, okay, good.
Thank you. I'm here. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any further comments? Or Russ, did you have any further comment on these items before we proceed with the motion?
Madam Chair, this is El. I just had a question.
Yes, go ahead, El.
Russ, underneath your change under section 8, removal of members, you scratched out that the secretary of the board shall notify the county commissioners. Who is going to notify the county commissioners that their representative has missed 3 meetings in a row? How will that county know?
So I'm not sure. There's a sentence missing from this, and I was going to try to pull that up on my laptop, but so the secretary of the board shall notify the county commissioners, and that's it. So my job will be just to notify the county commissioners. I'm not going to be requesting a replacement. That will be up to the county commissioners to make that determination. So if you choose to adopt these as written, need to make a note that that will include the secretary of the board will notify the commissioners.
Madam Chair, this is Al.
Yes, El, go ahead.
I think we need to put that sentence back in. Otherwise, county commissioners aren't going to know that their rep is not showing up.
Madam Chair, this is Russ.
Yes, Russ, go ahead.
So that would be the intent, is not to leave the entire sentence in there, because as I noted, unless it was the board's preference that I ask for a replacement, it's not the board's authority to make that determination. Does that make sense?
No. Sorry. Could you say that one more time?
Sure. So if a board member does not show up for a board meeting for 3 consecutive meetings, my suggested language is that the secretary of the board shall notify the county commissioners of the county that appointed that person, that the person has been absent, but not request a replacement. If you prefer that I request a replacement, then we would just leave that last sentence in there as written.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Megan.
I would just say I think the rewrite is fine. I think that probably truing this up to Idaho code is not a bad idea, and the makeup of the board is determined by the commissioners, not the membership of the board, and that's gotten really fuzzy, it seems like, based upon the emails that I was getting, and I'm pretty sure some of you that are not county commissioners were also receiving those emails as if we had a vote as to who the membership for the board would be. So I think notification to county commissioners about attendance is one thing, but this is, the membership of the board is determined in Idaho code by county commissioners.
I think that, Madam Chair, this is Al.
Yes, go ahead, El.
Megan, I think that's kind of understood, but my concern is the fact that if we have any county designee doesn't show up for 3 meetings or more, it's really unfair to the rest of the board, to me. And if what happens if you have a county that just says, well, we're not going to appoint anybody? I don't know how to handle that situation. I think that our secretary should be able to notify the board and request for our bylaws that they find a replacement as soon as possible.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Megan, go ahead.
I firmly disagree, particularly in light of the most recent legislation which this board supported that pulls back authority from the board in particular and places it with county commissioners. I think that that's been a deliberate move. I think that a lot of that is because there's a budgeting function of this board, and that's the primary function of this board. And now that we're looking at county money being the primary driver of what we do here, it's the county commissioners who are supposedly the keepers of the purse, and so they need to be responsible for what their own appointees are doing.
Madam Chair, this is Raul Labrador.
Yes, Raul, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Megan. I don't think that it should be our business to tell the county commissioners to appoint a new person, but I think it's wise for us to let them know that somebody's not participating in the meetings. So I think that should be the extent of our responsibility. And I would, so I would, if I understand what Russ said, that's what he tried to accomplish with the changes that he's proposing. Is that correct, Russ?
Madam Chair, that's correct, Raul.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Al.
Al, go ahead.
Right, so then basically, Russ, what we could do is just leave the second part of that last sentence in section 8, and request a replacement be nominated off. But I would definitely leave that the Secretary of Board shall notify the county commissioners.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Russ.
I sent the language to my team here. I don't know if Ed or Dustin or Donna would be able to pull that up on the screen, but that might be helpful. I sent it via an email, so if any of them are able to do that, it was the language I had intended to include.
Madam Chair,
Is
this
that
is
clear to
Jane.
everyone? Yes, Jane, go ahead.
Could we talk about the length of term in the meantime?
Yes, go ahead, Jane.
I was just going to ask Elt if he could speak to the pros and cons of unlimited term.
Well, I don't know, Jane, how to really answer that. You know, the world is run by those who show up, I guess. If what I don't want to do is get us into where we have the same leadership all the time. I think it's important for other people from different counties and different roles take on some of that leadership. That's, to me, is just good boardsmanship. And like I said earlier, I am willing to give up the trustee position if someone else really wants it. What I don't want to do is end up where we have the same president for ever and ever and ever.
Okay.
And the other thing that I wanted to add, Madam Chair, is that absent 3 consecutive meetings is the same rule that county commissioners have to live with as well. You can miss more than 3 meetings a year, but they can't be consecutive. And the secret word, or the main word there, is consecutive. If you don't have someone show up for 3 consecutive meetings, there should be a pretty good reason why.
Yes, thank you for that, Elt. Any further discussion?
So I
like that.
This is Raul Labrador.
Yes, Raul, go ahead.
I do want to make just a small comment on what El just said about the appointment of the trustee. I would rather do 4 consecutive terms better than indefinite, and it's for the reason that El said. I think it's good to have new leadership. I just think we need to give Elt an opportunity to be the the trustee this time, since there's changes to the law, there's changes to the way everything's being administered, and since he's had prior experience, I think that's a good thing for him to be there maybe this next year or 2, but after that there probably should be a new person as trustee. So I would be more comfortable having a set limit than an indefinite amount of time, or an indefinite number of times that you can be appointed.
So, Madam Chair, this is Elt.
Yes, Elt, go ahead.
So if you go to section 14, it says no person shall serve more than 4 consecutive 2-year terms. Should we make that just for the trustee position, or do you want to do it for all officers? To me, it seems like maybe we should just make it for the trustee position. I don't know. Did I lose you guys?
No,
No.
it never occurred to me.
It got really quiet there.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Megan, go ahead.
I think there's an argument to be made for consistency, unless all we're doing is kind of fiddling around just to make sure that Elt can keep his job as trustee, which I feel uncomfortable with that kind of fiddling. I have no problem with Elt serving as trustee, and understand that there's much less capacity for trustees right now after the law changes. But, you know, if we have a consistent change, then I'm fine with that. Otherwise, it just doesn't seem appropriate.
Madam Chair, this is Elt.
Yes, Elt, go ahead.
The other thing to keep in mind is the fact that because Dr. Epperly was elected to a trustee for, I don't know what, 2 months or however long he served, means that I can basically start over because that position was filled and now it's vacant again. So that's something else to keep in mind as well. They won't be consecutive.
Okay, correct. Okay, any further discussion?
Madam Chair, this is Russ.
Yes, Russ.
And I know that some of our board members won't be able to see it, but I did have our team pull up the other section that we were discussing, which is Section 8, removal of members of the District Board of Health. And it will read, I'll just read it again for those who are on the phone. Any member of the board who shall be absent from 3 consecutive meetings for reasons not deemed reasonable by the board will be reported by the secretary of the board to the chair of the Board of County Commissioners who appointed the board member.
That's great.
Yes, that sounds good to me. Would anybody like to have that repeated?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Megan? Raul, you good?
I'm
I
fine.
can see it on my screen, so that's helpful.
All right, I guess we are ready to call for a motion if everybody's clear on those revisions.
Madam Chair, this is El.
Yes, Phil, go ahead.
I will make the motion that we approve the bylaw changes as presented by the Secretary of the Board.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay,
Are
thank
we
you,
voting
Jane.
on the section 14 as well?
That was my understanding, is that Russ is, or El, was that your
Yes,
intent?
all of them, all the changes.
Right.
So
Okay.
which one of the 3 choices did you choose for 14? The 4 consecutive 2-year terms?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion before I call for a vote? Okay, hearing none, I'll start with Ada County. Dr. Young.
Jane Young, aye.
Raul Labrador.
Raul Labrador, yes.
Dr. Cole.
Dr. Cole, yes.
Okay, thank you. Boise County, Commissioner Sturm. Elmore County, Representative Blanksma.
Megan Blanksma, yes.
Okay, Valley County, Commissioner Hasbrook.
Commissioner Hasbrook, yes.
Okay, thank you. That motion does pass, and those revisions will go into effect immediately. Okay, proceeding on to agenda item number 2. This is a review and vote on the new trustee. So nominations are open for that position at this time.
Madam Chair, this is Jane. I nominate Elt.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Is there a second to that nomination? Do I hear a second for Elt's nomination?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Raul. Thank you. Any further discussion before I call for a vote? Okay. All right, starting with Ada County, Dr. Young.
Jane Young, yes.
Okay. Raul Labrador.
Yes.
Dr. Coles.
Dr. Cole, yes.
Okay, thank you. Boise County, Commissioner Sturm. He's not on. Elmore County, Representative Blanksma.
Megan Blanksma, yes.
Okay, and Valley County, Commissioner Hasbrook.
Maybe.
Hey, you're outvoted, Elt. Congratulations, and thank you for your many years of service. I walked in those shoes, and I know they're not easy ones sometimes. So we truly appreciate you doing this for us again.
Well, and
this brings us to the conclusion of our agenda today. Russ, are you still there?
I am.
Okay. Since Dr. Coles did join us during the meeting, would you like to introduce him to the rest of us and welcome him to the board?
Sure, and I'll certainly give Dr. Cole some time to introduce himself as well, but I would start with some of his credentials. Dr. Cole is a physician, so he is filling the required physician board seat for each of the local public health boards in Idaho. This is our physician position for Central District Health. He's the Chief Executive Officer and Medical Director of Cole Diagnostics. He received a Bachelor of Science in Pre-Medicine Zoology from Brigham Young University, his medical degree from Virginia Commonwealth University Medical College of Virginia. He completed his residency in anatomic and clinical pathology and a surgical pathology fellowship at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. And he did a dermatopathology fellowship at Ackerman Academy of Dermatopathology, Columbia University in New York. He's board certified in both clinical and anatomical pathology, and he holds a medical license in 11 states. So I would turn the time over to Dr. Cole.
Thank you, Russ.
Go ahead, Dr. Cole. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm humbled and honored to be here and be on the board with you. As much controversy as the media likes to kick up, I'm grateful, and I'm always here to serve the community. I care about the health of our community, and I will be an active member of the board, doing my best to serve, to educate, to advise, and help in any which way I can to make sure we have a healthy, strong community. So I'm incredibly grateful, and thank you for that introduction, Russ. Again, I'm just humbled and grateful to be on the board and the opportunity to serve.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Coles. Welcome, and we look forward, I think all of us, to be able to meet you in person. So,
thank you.
With that, I will call for a motion for adjournment, and I do want to thank the public that has listened in, participated in the meeting today, and to announce that our next regularly scheduled meeting is October 15th, beginning at 8:30 a.m. So, at this time, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Madam Chair, this is Elt. I so move.
Thank you, Elt. Is there a second?
Jane Young, second.
Thank you, Jane. Any further discussion before calling for a vote? Okay, hearing none, I will proceed with Ada County. Dr. Young?
Jane Young, aye.
Raul Labrador?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Dr. Coles?
Yes.
Boise County, Commissioner Sturm? He's not on the call. Elmore County, Representative Blanksmont?
Megan Blanksmont, yes.
Okay, and Valley County, Commissioner Hasbrook?
Commissioner Hasbrook, yes.
Okay, thank you, folks. The meeting is thus adjourned, and thank you to all of you for your participation, and have a lovely rest of your day. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.